Welcome to Mr. Kirk's Civics and Economics class. I decided to create a little First Amendment review over your five fundamental freedoms that come from that amendment. This is SOL 3B. You can use it on one of your remote activities this week. Question is, what fundamental rights and liberties are guaranteed in the First Amendment? Now, our very First Amendment freedom, as you can see from the crosses, which would represent Christianity, is freedom of religion. Now, there are two parts of freedom of religion. The first one is the government may not establish an official religion. And the second part is the government may not interfere with the free exercise of religion. Now, that first part, establish an official religion. Hold on one second. This right here. This is called the Establishment Clause. But this is the part that we talked about more in class, the free exercise of religion, which just means that as Americans, we can practice any religion that we want. Our second First Amendment freedom is freedom of speech. As Bart Simpson is showing on the chalkboard, not everything is covered by the First Amendment. Individuals are free to express their opinions and beliefs. This can be done with our voices, but it can also be done with our clothing or signs that we make. Think during a protest or something like that. What we do need to know is that not all of freedom of speech is protected by the First Amendment. For example, you cannot yell fire in a movie theater. There was a guy who went to jail for that a long time ago. Our third First Amendment freedom is freedom of the press. Down here in the lower left, you'll see it's a newspaper, and that's what the press is. The press has a right to gather and publish information, including that which criticizes the government. That means that on the internet, on YouTube, a newspaper, television, anything like that, we can say bad things about our government as long as we're not threatening anybody or breaking any laws. Our fourth First Amendment freedom is freedom of assembly. This means that people may peacefully gather in public. You see freedom of assembly used a lot during protest and especially the civil rights movement. In this bottom picture, you see some college students participating in the Walk for Freedom. And up here at the top, you will see people listening and viewing a speech given by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. These people in the background are practicing their freedom of assembly, while Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was practicing his freedom of speech. Our final First Amendment freedom is called freedom of petition, and this means that people have a right to make their views known to government officials or public officials. That means you can sign a petition, as the picture in the bottom says, or it could be an email or a letter written to the president, to the governor, to a senator, or even a school board member because you think a law is unjust, or you want your taxes to be lowered, or maybe you don't agree with a dress code at a school. That could be a letter to a school board member. I also wanted to go over our old acronym, RAPS. Each of these letters for RAP stands for one of our First Amendment freedoms. We have freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of press, petition, and speech. It's a good way to just remember all five First Amendment freedoms. Now I'd like to go over a few examples before I get out of here. I'm going to turn this video off real quick. So decide which First Amendment freedom this picture represents. Good. It's freedom of speech. You see the guy here, and that's what he's doing, talking to everybody, giving his opinions. Right here, you have four people wrapped around a tree. They don't want the loggers to cut it down. That would be freedom of assembly. Good job. Our next one, as you can see, that's a church, so it would be freedom of religion. This guy, blah, 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 probably somebody's teacher. Freedom of speech. Right here, we have newsprint. That would be freedom of the press. This one would be, obviously, freedom of petition. You're signing a petition because of you want the government to know you don't like something. This guy, this is the nightly news. That would be freedom of the press also, even though it's not a newspaper.